Everyone, welcome back. This is my VITUS SOMMET 2022 custom build. I spent all winter building this thing up. I put all the best parts, the lightest parts. This is hands down the nicest bike I've ever owned, let alone enduro bike. And yeah, I'm just excited to show everyone and to get riding on it this season. Let's take a look at some of the parts. Alright, so I went with the Diety High sidebar. It's a 35mm clamp design. It's a 50mm rise, and I have it cut to 750mm. So I went with Raceface 33mm grippler grips. I started using these a few years ago on my Trance, and I'll never go back. The larger diameter, it's less hand fatigue, and got them in a gray this time to color match everything else. So holding everything together is a Defy DMR stem. It's a 35mm reach with a 5mm rise. It's got a 225-degree clamping split, so it clamps the bars really well. It looks super gnarly with this liquid camo paint job, they call it, over gunmetal. And I have everything stocked using Hope spacers. I'm about 1 inch off the deck. So to slow things down, I went with the Dominion A4 brake system. I got it in a bronze to color match everything. And then I really love how they have the reach adjuster that's integrated into the lever. And they also have a little screw there if you want to do your pad preload adjustments. And then of course the brake system comes with 4-piston brake calipers. They're color matched in bronze. They're a really good set of brakes, good modulation, lots of power, lots of people using these brakes, really good reviews. And for rotors, I went with Hope floating disc brake rotors, and then I just threw some pops of color in there on the hardware. So continuing on in the cockpit, I went with a PNW Loam dropper post lever. It's got this awesome rubber contact patch on it. And what's really cool about it is it uses a real bearing as well. And then that's actuating a 150mm PNW Loam dropper post. So for shifting, I'm using Shimano XT. I wasn't sure if it was going to work with the SRAM X01, but it works like an absolute dream. I love these shifters, got good ergonomics. I love how you can shift multiple gears down with the downshift lever with either your thumb or your index finger. One cool thing in the most recent models, they actually added a co-molded rubber contact patch in there as well. So it's got to be Shimano shifting for me. Tried, tested, and true. Alright, so for some squish up front, I went with the 2022 170mm Rockshox ZEB Ultimate Fork. It's got a bunch of clicks for rebound, I forget how many, but right now I have it set to about middle. This year's model is rocking the Charger 3 RC2 damper in it. So far with the fork set up as is, it's been absolutely butter smooth. So I currently have one token in it, running about 60 pounds of pressure. And of course, compression is super adjustable, so you can adjust high speed, low speed compression. I have everything set to middle of the road. It's got the bleeder valves on the stanchions, so you can let air out. And I love how they included this little bolt-on fender instead of having to zip tie those cheap plastic fenders on. I think it's a nice touch. It looks kind of cool too. For the front hub, I went with an Octane One Orbital, and it's in an oil slick finish. On the front, I'm running a Minion DHF 29 by 2.6. It's an EXO Plus casing. On the rear, I'm running an Assegai 27.5 by 2.5, and again, EXO Plus casing. So for rims, I went with generic Chinese carbon. I went with the 12K twill, so it gives you that kind of cross-hatched look. And then I threw on some custom decals and some custom background skull graphics from this UK company called indiebikes.com. I think it turned out great. These custom rims are probably one of my favorite parts on the bike. So for the saddle, I went with the SDG Chippy Duster saddle. I'm a big fan of SDG saddles. I have one on my Trance. They're lightweight, they're comfortable. This one is got the Thai alloy rails, and of course, gotta love those graphics. I thought it would go really good with the build. And again, another one of my favorite components on this build. For the water bottle, I'm rocking a nuke-proof death potion with graphics, and then a left-hand pull carbon nuke-proof water bottle cage. So for pedals, I went with Spank Uzi platform pedals, and they're in a gunmetal gray to match the rest of the color scheme. So my choice of cranks was the E13 LG1Rs. They're a full carbon crank arm for downhill and enduro. They're a super high-end set of cranks, very lightweight, and then I coupled that with the E13 BB. So mated to those crank arms is a 32-tooth Helix front ring in a copper finish. And then for the chain, I went with the SRAM XX1 in a copper finish to color match everything else. And then holding that chain nice and tight is an E13 LG1 chain guide. Okay, and to get that chain moving the back wheel, I went with an E13 Helix R cassette. It's a 1050 range, and it's in a bronze to color match everything else. So for the rear hub, I went with a Black Hope Pro 4. And then to make this drivetrain come alive, I went with the SRAM X01 rear derailleur. And as mentioned before, it works flawlessly with the Shimano XT front shifter. So I hope everyone enjoyed this bike check video. I had a ton of fun sourcing the parts, putting everything together, and watching the build take shape. I'm hoping to do a first impressions ride review video in the near future, and some other videos and some other riding gear that I got for 2023. So it's going to be a good season. Looking forward to seeing everybody out there.